Yeah, since it's 3 minutes past 4, let's get started. If Naveen joins, we can figure out. I can give this to Naveen. Um, we have this. So before we get started, let's see. Do we have any new folks joining in who maybe want to introduce themselves? Um, you know, tell us a bit about what you're interested in Scorecard and All Star. Okay, I guess not. Um, so I don't see a lot of items which are not done by Naveen. So while we wait for Naveen, do folks have anything that you want to discuss? Carolyn, Saurabh, I see you guys are there. I know last week we never got to discuss the IBM and the release commit issue. So maybe should we take the time to discuss that now?
I apologize. I completely forgot about. I thought it was at 4 p.m. I apologize for starting late.
Yes. Hey, hey, Naveen. So while we waited for you, we just got started.
Perfect.
Um, Yeah. So I know there are two items that you added, Naveen. So I had just posed a question to Caroline and Saurabh if they want to discuss the release issue while we waited. So unless,
hmm
yeah,
Yeah,
do you,
this is Caroline. So I have been taking a look at the commit depth, haven't gotten too far yet, but just been using that as an excuse to like get familiar with the code. So I'll probably message you and the team on Slack with any specific questions I or others working with me have.
okay, sounds good. Naveen, do you want to take over? I know the other two issues are something you added anyways.
Sure. Perfect. Okay. I will take over. Can you guys look at my screen? I just want to make sure you guys can see my screen.
Yeah.
Screen seen.
Okay. Okay. Uh, uh, so weird. Sorry. I'm gonna stop the share for a moment, and this is a little weird. Okay. A couple of one of the I don't know, Azim, did you get talk about the scorecard dev Twitter account that has come up?
No, I think we're
Okay,
waiting for you.
perfect. Okay. So OpenSSF officially created a scorecard underscore dev Twitter account. They this is specifically for us because we were discussing about whether to create a blog or Twitter account, and this happened to be easier. Obviously, it's a lot more people to reach out to, so that's one update from the project. Second thing is I wrote up this specifically. Our release notes are. I want to open this up. Our release notes aren't human readable. They just like, here's an example of something. It comes up like this. So this is good that we're adding the PR title, but for we have a section for release notes within the PR that most of them, every time everybody's filling that in. And the issue right now is we are not pulling that content out to publish in the release notes. One of the reasons we brought this up is because Stephen brought this up. He came up with the template. I just want to bring this up saying there's a tool in Kubernetes that's supposed to help with this. I am not aware of it. That's why I pinged Stephen so that if we can get some traction on that. And that's one thing that I had as an issue. If Stephen, okay, first of all, do we have consensus that our release notes should be up until then? It's done for now. Could we take the PR titles and from that and put it on our release notes?
Sorry, I mean, do you mean like PR titles? Like,
Oh, no, I meant not the PR titles. I meant the release notes from the PR content. Should at least go into our release notes instead of just the PR titles.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah, right.
sounds great, right? I believe that's what
Right.
Stephen added for. But yeah, I'm not super sure how the automation works. I know there are a bunch of different tools. I added one which I've seen a bunch of people use. But yeah, I think
Cool. Okay,
this
so at least if I went back and looked at the Kubernetes repo wherein they wrote a tool for release which will parse the release node template section and go generate that. Probably look at a couple of tools, either this or the other one, but it doesn't for me when I had to read the release notes, it does not come out well. Specifically, I saw this in the scorecards dev. Whenever we see this, like if we go click any of these things, it comes up with this, makes it harder to know what has changed, unless if you're tracking everything within the project, it's really hard to know what has changed as a general overview. That's my thought process behind opening this up.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need someone who has some knowledge here, right? I was hoping, I think Stephen has kind of volunteered to be the release
Yes.
manager for
Uh-huh.
Scorecard. I think we should like follow up with him. I know he's been busy recently, but yeah, maybe we should follow up with him. And I think this has been pending for a while. But at the same
Yes.
time, I'm not sure if anyone here, as far as I know, I don't think we have the knowledge of the tools to figure out how
Sure.
these things
Right.
can be automated well.
Uh,
So yeah, maybe we should ask for Steven to be involved here.
Yeah, and that's why I pinged Stephen on this, at least on the ticket, so that we can have some traction on that. We probably, if we don't hear from him, I will also email to him just so that we have some update on that. Okay. No one else has any comment, David? It's you want to go to take the next one? Oh, pretty printing the JSON output for making machine readable. Azim, do you have specific thing on that?
Not
Yeah. First
really.
of all, is this an insane idea? I think it was mentioned, but I don't remember where.
I think we talked about it in the last meeting, this same meeting, the last instance
Okay.
of it. Yeah, I think that's reasonably doable, right? I don't see an issue in doing that. I'm not sure what all we might break. But I think it should be fine to pretty print it. And
there are
If
two
anyone,
sections.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Naveen.
There are two sections, Azim. One is the one that writes to the BigQuery. The one is the one that writes to the bucket. We can just fix the bucket writing so we can pretty print it, so that the BigQuery does not change.
If there is a system that breaks because you pretty print for JSON formatting, either the JSON formatter is screwed up or the downstream reader is screwed up, and in which case we need to fix. I mean, really, this is just adding ignorable white space.
yeah, I think maybe that should be doable. So Naveen, to your point, I guess David is talking about the API.
Yeah, right. The API.
Yeah, I'm really just talking about the API, right?
Yeah, I believe we can just do it at the scorecard web app level where we send out a pre-printed JSON rather than a blob of JSON.
Yeah, that sounds like the right place to do it.
Perfect. On that note, I'm going to ask something. Azim, I at least saw you send out an email and about getting some help with the UI. Did you get any feedback on that, Azim?
No, I haven't seen the volunteers
Great.
on that.
So I was thinking that we should go, because having a UI is critical for consumers from my perspective. Why not go ask OpenSSF funding for somebody to do this? like get an UI dev to help with this. Do we what are people's opinion on that?
I can give my 2 cents. I mean, I don't think that's a bad idea. I just feel like it might be a bit too small a task to be involving a vendor. I mean, if we have like a bigger chunk of work which is UI related, I think it might be worth considering it. But as far as I know, I don't think we have that work right now. This seems like someone with the knowledge can fix it with like a single PR. So I'm not sure if it.
Okay, great. Right, but nobody's volunteering. That's my problem. Like agreed. If I knew anything of UI, it'll be nice, but I don't know, and I don't have the bandwidth to learn. But now that we don't have, and I saw your request at least 2-3 weeks before, I'm saying, if not, what else?
What is the website, and is it like in React or what?
So the API is in Go.
But I thought there's a website for scorecards as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think the fix, or rather the UI that Naveen is talking about, that's the API. So the website is written in, I think it's Vue.js.
It's in React. It's in React, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the work that Naveen is talking about, that's in Go, which is in the Scorecard API.
But isn't the idea that when someone clicks on the badge, that it should actually be a UI which shows rather than JSON, right?
Yes. So it's Varun, you're right. We got to figure out, hey, now and we want the UI to be consistent with what the scorecards website should be is because then it should be seamless, because then the UI should be similar. Do we take that HTML magic, put in the Go, or like probably that's the easiest way, so it can render to the browser and show that. That's the help we need.
I mean, we could just have a single React page which makes an API call, gets the JSON, and then just renders it.
Perfect. Yes. Do you know somebody can help with this? A single page with the same thing?
I mean, I can take a first thing. If you can share where is the
Absolutely
website code,
yes,
then I can.
It's a public repository. I can share that with you, Varun.
Sure.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. The next item, Caroline, do you want
to? Sure. Yeah. So this one is about Hacktoberfest. So I just found out about Hacktoberfest. It seems pretty interesting. Seems like it's good exposure to get people familiar with the project and to tackle some of the smaller issues. So I think for the project itself, it's pretty easy to add yourself as being involved by like adding tags to the project and to specific issues you think it would be good and ones you think people would be able to accomplish within the month of October. So just an idea, wanted to throw it out there.
I concur. One of the things for Hacktoberfest is the contributors supporting with enough, able to create specific issues and able to help people navigate through stuff to complete. That's the goal. If we have a consensus among the contributors to say, hey, we can dedicate time for doing this, it's a great idea.
Yeah, and it looks like there's like around 20 good first issues, so we could probably tag those also with Hacktoberfest as well.
Zim, do you have any thoughts on that?
Sorry, I was distracted. What's the question?
It's about Hacktoberfest, tagging items with Hacktoberfest. Ideally, if we start tagging with Hacktoberfest, we ideally want to support these new contributors so that they finish the PR, get that merged in, so that that's their end goal. And do you
Yeah,
because
think,
we should help
they-
them with that. We should have
Yeah.
we should the goal is to set aside some time for that. That's the goal.
Sure. I just want to clarify. Is this something like I'm not sure what's the process for, like, getting involved here? Is it like just tagging is enough, or like, is there like a
Yeah,
any
and then
reward? How do people say they get some swag for fixing some of these issues? Yeah, I just want to clarify. I not against or for it.
right. The Hacktoberfest is run by I don't know which specific organization, but we as a maintainers can go say, hey, here is our repository, and whoever gets their PRs merged in, the Hacktoberfest pulls that information, gives them some kind of gift. It could be T-shirt, something like that. I've once got a T-shirt. That's the information on that. I'm going to pause right now. Let Jeff answer something. Jeff, you want to say something?
Yeah, I guess I had the same question. Is Caroline, do you know what the what it'll take from Scorecard side to participate? If we do just mark all the good first issues with the appropriate tag, is that it? And then just see what people contribute there, or is there more effort involved?
That's the gist of it. I sent a link in the Zoom chat, but it's tagging the issues themselves and also tagging the project with Hacktoberfest. So that way, when you go from the site, they have a link that links to all Hacktoberfest related projects. And so it'll just get added to that list. I know there's a Discord, but I don't know if it's expected for like the project maintainers to be on there. But I think it's in general, just like having the maintainers available and ready for more new committers or more people to be involved in general. Yeah, I think it's not too much from what I've seen.
Sure.
Yeah, it looks like they have a summary there in the maintainer section on the bottom of that page. It looks. I think we have a contributing MD. Good first issues should be well defined, scope and self-contained. We have code of conduct for OpenSSF, I think.
Yep, we do.
And then just be ready to review pull merge requests, accepting those are valid.
Yeah, just
And
the
adding
only thing is with
Hacktoberfest accepted. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, with rewards like t-shirts, people are going to send just spam PRs. So just having the capacity to deal with those.
Yeah. My 2 cents would be, let's try it out. If there are spam PRs, then we'll see again whether it works or not. I agree. Zim, do you want to say something, please?
Yeah, I mean, I have no issues, but given the similar concerns that Spencer raised, right? I think if there's at least one person who says that, I can like kind of lead this or own this, I think that would be easy. Because I think that it's easier to do it that way rather than, everyone kind of half participating without knowing who's actually responsible for this. So if anyone's willing to volunteer and say that, they are going to lead it, do the end-to-end procedure and like make sure the PRs are getting merged and things like that. If anyone's willing to own it, not to say that we won't be helping, but we need a point of contact to say that, who's finally responsible. I think that will probably increase my confidence in actually doing it.
Absolutely.
Because yeah,
Sorry.
like just my understanding is that right now scorecard maintainers have their plates pretty full. So yeah, I think if someone's willing to step up, very happy to do this.
Agreed. So can we, Caroline, at least for now, at least, I don't have the bandwidth, at least I can speak for myself. Azim, Spencer, do you just want to make sure before I say respond to that?
Yeah, and I'm not a maintainer, so I feel like I don't have the permissions to do much, but if you need someone to like keep an eye on things and like message, like forward things along, I can help with that.
Don't think being a maintainer is needed. Like I could be wrong, but yeah, I mean, like we could help you, but like, yeah, we need someone who might like lead the effort. But I don't think being a maintainer should be a requirement here. Yeah.
Spencer, you want to say something?
Yeah, just I have a little bit of time where I can, close spam issues or point people in the right direction. I just don't have the ability to actually merge the PRs in.
That's surprising. Is that because you're a collaborator right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but we should be. You have done enough. I think it's time that we add this in. Azim, do you? I want to go ahead and add him to be the maintainer. So another pair of hands would help.
Yeah, I mean, I think sure, but I also think since we don't have two maintainers in the call right now, we may just keep it separate. What might be helpful is, Spencer, if you do want to drive this, I don't know, Carolyn and Spencer, I know Carolyn, you also showed some interest. Do you both want to kind of drive it together? And me and Naveen can pitch in and like actually, if you need actual maintainer access, we can kind of help you out there. But I guess you guys can like sync offline over Slack and like kind of let us know if you actually decide to take this up.
Yeah. Okay, Spencer, I can reach out to you after this.
Yeah, sounds good.
Perfect. The next issue, Saurabh, you want to talk about the security controls mapping?
Yes. So I was going through some of the NIST controls in our audit compliance project where I'm working, and thought if we could map our scorecard checks to map to what the controls we are checking and mapping to, which is supporting in NIST controller OOPS, like access side and other controls, which is from the compliance point of view. So that can give you more exposure. These are the controls we are from the top. We are supporting through scorecard, and future we can enhance more to incorporate some more controls and work on that to work along with NIST control or OWASP based controls incorporated our code, something like that.
So Saurabh, is your question?
If we have any plan for that, or we
Okay, so okay, that makes sense. I'm at least going to speak for me. I am not aware of NIST or OWASP which maps to scorecard checks. Azim, do you want to take a stand? I saw your hands raised.
Yeah. So when you said NIST, do you mind telling me which NIST doc is this? Is this like NIST SP 500 or something?
Give me. There are some on the NIST side. I can give one example here.
Yeah, I mean, I just like, is this the SSDF one? There's also the one around security and privacy controls.
Yeah, security privacy. Yeah, security and privacy control. So it's explained in NIST 8053 control families.
Yeah, I think that's an idea that's been floated around. So So I can say this, right? So I think that is a pretty good direction, and I think there are like very initial discussions on like thinking how scorecard can like adopt something like that. Although the specific document that you're mentioning, which is the NIST SP 853, that does not map to what we are trying to solve. I mean, we can take some inspiration from it, and we can like try to see how scorecard can use a similar framework. But I think it is difficult to map to an existing standard, because as far as I know, there is no particular framework which says here's how you can assess an open source security. Like, it's actually an open-ended problem that no one has solved. So I don't see us fitting into a NIST or like an OAuth standard, but I do think we might take some inspirations of like how these standards were developed, and like kind of go from there. I don't know if that makes sense or answers your question.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, some way it is mapping to, or not exactly mapping, but we are taking the inspiration and trying to achieve the compliance and security aspect of those areas, but not exactly the same, but somewhere we are related to. That's good. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Varun, do you have?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I had seen a similar issue in Scorecard about doing a comparison with the CIS benchmark for supply chain security. So that, yeah, so I thought that was sort of similar to this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, there's another open source project that's driving some other stuff on that. If I'm not wrong, there was a,
I think that's Aqua Security.
yeah, right, Aqua Security, where they're trying to build something. And again, if I'm not wrong, that's an alpha beta, not the tool, but the CIS benchmark for supply chain security is.
In fact, another thing, which would be good in terms of this mapping is actually with the GitHub Actions hardening guide. Like, a lot of the things which are in the guide are actually checked by Scorecard, but not all.
Yeah, I think I would caution against like what exists like in trying to map what scorecard should be to what already exists, right? I mean, I do think the problem domain we are trying to solve is actually like no one's actually is doing something exactly that, which is that you're taking an open source repository and trying to figure out what are the different threat vectors, what are the different security controls that you can harden. And I think trying to fit into some of the existing ones will like pigeonhole us into like only trying to solve specific problems. So yeah, I just want to caution against going down that route. I think we really should be thinking about how do we extend our framework to kind of bring out that new thing that doesn't exist.
I mean, one of the ways to extend is just to do a comparison with others, right? Otherwise, it's like not using or learning from what others are doing. And I mean, given a GitHub repository and GitHub Actions, a lot of the stuff which is written in the GitHub Actions hardening guide will anyways apply. Like token permissions, pinning dependencies, all that stuff is also in the GitHub Actions hardening guide. Like, one of the examples which I see is not in Scorecard is about rotating GitHub Actions secret. So that is best practice in the GitHub Actions security guide. It's not something that is done by Scorecard. So simply by comparing it, sort of gives ideas about should this be there or not. It's not that we have to implement all of it. More about thought exercise of whether it should be there versus not.
Yeah, I think that sounds fair. Right? I mean, like I said, we are like deriving our inspiration from various points. So yeah, like the GitHub security, sorry, the GitHub Actions hardening might be another place that we should probably look at. If you don't mind, I think Saurabh has added link to the OWASP and the SP 800 thing. If you could add a link to that too, that would be great.
Yeah.
Perfect. Varun, looks like next is your issue, or at least your topic about 2318.
Yeah, so this one is about thinking about more options for the SAST tools. So right now, Scorecard checks for CodeQL, LGTM, and Sonar, and there's an issue that LGTM is going away. And this thing is more about discussing whether there should be more tools which are added. And I've put some sort of things to consider. So one is about language specific tools. So there are certain tools like GoSec and Bandit which are language specific. And the other one is just about pricing. So these results also show up in private repos if someone runs it in a private repo. So having options which are free or open source might also help there. And then there's this specialized purpose. So this I've actually taken from the CI's benchmark for supply chain security. So one of them is about scanning for secrets in code. And so what that says is that you should have some sort of scanner that is looking for secrets in code. And then there are a set of other scanners. So just wanted to bring this up to to discuss if there should be more options for SAST tools.
I'm going to take a stab initially on this. There's a PR that Laurent wrote this a while back. There's made some large refactoring which involved bringing this in. Azim, do you know what happened to this PR?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think Laurent has just been busy. I don't think he's had time to get back to it. But yeah, I know this is like updating the SAS check is a pending issue we've had for a while now.
Yeah. And it's, Varun, if at least if my memory serves right, it's not like at least what Laurent in this large PR is trying to do is not just adding additional string checks, doing it much more better to make sure things are, and the scoring and all those things. It's a large, not an extremely large, but a medium-sized PR trying to do this, if I'm not wrong. And coming back to your specific question, where does this stand? Especially on this, where does this stand? We can try and ask if Laurent can work on that, if someone else wants to pick it up and work on. I don't, at least from my perspective, what you mentioned is at least most of the things at least I concur on. I don't know whether licensing is something that, but that's another topic. But at least adding additional tools will certainly be helpful.
Yeah, for example, dependency review action. I've seen a lot of projects. I think even Scorecard is probably using that. So which is for vulnerabilities in open source packages.
So is your thing, hey, are we checking like CodeQL? Can we add this check for dependency review action? Is that okay? The one critical problem, or I'm going to step back and talk about this, is not a problem. Now, if we add these additional stuff, then our scoring should not affect. We need to figure out how do we change scoring for that? Because by adding new stuff, if you bring down somebody's score down, they're like, and if not, we need to pin to a specific version, and then we need to have alpha, beta. Those were I brought in dependency review action to be added to the SAST tools, and that's when we discuss about this. So those are the not just doing these checks, but which in turn affect the scoring. Those are the problems that we still haven't discussed about.
Yeah, I think I think that in the future there'll definitely be changes that will affect the score. So it's better to have some sort of a process around it that the next 3 months something is coming out, and if you do
Yes.
this, it'll not.
Alpha, beta,
or just a version number. If I may be so bold, I think it would be a terrible mistake to force things so that there can never be improvements. I mean, there's a whole lot of things. There's a vast number of things that Scorecards doesn't currently measure. So I think that it would be important to not freeze things just where it is today.
absolutely.
Mm.
And that implies that scores will change. And that implies that, most people probably just want, hey, what's the current score? And they don't need to know the version number. But if they need to know the version number of Scorecards that was used, then, make it possible to find that information.
I'm gonna take a stab again and say this. We probably need a framework like to say, hey, these additional new checks are alpha or beta or something like that, and which will almost call it as a breaking release change between like 4 and 5. And 5, we're gonna have these enabled, which is 3 months from now, something like that. We should come up as a framework. So essentially, new consumers know, hey, at 4, I had the score, but 5, these additional new checks came up, and that's why my score either went up or came down.
Okay, but under SEMVer, I wouldn't call this a breaking change. I mean, your score went up, went down, but if it was something like you changed the JSON format so that the keywords were no longer useful,
Okay.
that I think would be a breaking change. Adding a new measure should not be a breaking change. Now you have more information than you did before. The score, I mean, if you want to claim that the score may be different, you can argue it's more accurate now. You're trying to provide, hey, what's the risk level? And you are trying to move towards increased accuracy. The score is also going to change just from tweaks in the tool.
Okay.
New ways to identify things, like, it currently doesn't handle Circle CI. So you add Circle CI, you didn't change any criteria, and yet the score is going to change. I don't think there's any way around it.
Okay, it's either positive or negative. So what you're saying is, hey, we don't have to have SEMVer breaking, but we should just communicate to as a
that
large
there's a change. Right.
That there's a change.
I would make that. Yeah, I would make either it's a minor or a patch, but the breaking changes, and
Sure.
really you want to avoid breaking changes. For example, I've complained earlier that the badge application is called CII. It hasn't been CII for a while. But you know what? You could add a new name and then add it and keep the old name if to keep it not breaking. And then when you remove the old name, make that a breaking change. Or whatever. I will quickly observe that the best practices badge, which has this as a challenge, we handle this slightly differently, and you can decide whether or not you like this or not. But whenever we propose adding new measures, we add them, but we identify them as what's called future. And future criteria are, their criteria are described, they are measured, they just don't count to the score. And when you switch them to counting to the score, that's when the future marking is removed. You don't have to do it that way, but I mean, I do think that thinking ahead of time so that you're going to make improvements and it's okay is important, because obviously we want this to continuously improve.
Perfect. And also, like I mentioned, the other point about release notes, now specifically having release notes, hey, these things are going to affect the score, would specifically help people, hey, what changed, and helping them in the minor or any other, need not be major or minor or revision, could specifically help somebody understand why, what happened. Cool. Varun, on this note, at least I think we agree, just that if you want to work on pull the previous PR and work on that, or if you have bandwidth, I'm sorry, I'm not throwing that down on you. We can also check with Laurent if he has bandwidth on that.
Yeah, I think the first step would probably be to just have a discussion about which tools should be added versus which category should be added. And once it's clear, then I think the coding is the second part of it.
You're probably right, and we should look at we should ask at least look at this what but what do you like there's always going to be new tools we're going to identify, like my 2 cents again, we're going to be Gosek, Bandit, there's another tool that's going to come up. As long as we have the framework in to add these things, adding an example, LGTM went away, we should be able to remove them, but as long as we have the framework, bringing one versus the other should not be hard in my opinion.
But should there be some sort of decision framework around, okay, should this tool be added versus not added? Or
like, for example, if there's an PR that came in for adding Sonatype lift. I still haven't reviewed that, and we still haven't at least had a major. We have, at least in the past, we've been able to add tools which are open source, which specifically adds security to the lifecycle of the project. At least up until now, we have not said no to anything. So I don't see a reason why we would want to say no to, unless either it's an open source, have different licensing, or if it's not maintained. Those are the only reasons that at least I can think of. I'll let others speak.
okay, so I think so in that sense, Gosek and Bandit should be easy adds, but the other ones require thinking in terms of new categories. Right? So for example, should there be a category for secret scanning? Should there be a category for the rest of them? So maybe, if there can be like a decision for each of these categories, whether it applies to, or, is it sort of in scope for scorecard or not, then that should, help decide on, for example, scanner for CI pipeline. I think scorecard already has checks for GitHub Actions. I'm not sure if that's really anything else is really needed, or not that I actually know of anything else. Scanner for IAC, this I'm not sure if it's in scope for scorecard. Scanner for vulnerabilities in open source packages or dependency review, could be added, but do we want to add a category for this? And then the last one is scanner for open source license issues, which again, I'm not actually sure if it really applies to scorecard.
Well, everything except maybe the last one, I think definitely does. And I would also make a case for the last one. I mean, what's the point of scorecard? It's not really to make a random number. We already have random number generators. I mean, the point is to provide a number to help people make decisions. Either I'm using this, but maybe I shouldn't, or I'm thinking about using this, maybe I should or shouldn't. And so I think drilling down to the yes, they have a secret scanner or not is appropriate. And more importantly, it also provides information to the projects. I mean, that's the third group of potential users is hey, is my project doing okay? And if the response is, I'm glad you have a CI/CD pipeline. I'm glad you have I'm glad you have a SaaS tool as in a source code vulnerability scanner, but you don't have a linter and you don't have a secret scanning tool and, and so on. I think that's legitimate. Licensing is a little more arguable, I grant you. I will note that it is within scope of the best practices, not the badge this time, although the badge does require that, the best practices badge, and the best practices working group has a list of criteria of how they recommend you evaluate open source software. They include, use scorecards to get some information, and they do include licensing. Under the assumption that if you can't even license the software in a way that makes it legal to use, maybe, you don't have any licenses, maybe you're not taking care of the store for security either. I don't think that that's unreasonable.
So on that note, Varun, what would you want the open source license issues to essentially pull out? Like, I'm just picking an example like Black Duck and things like that, which essentially goes and looks at all licensing. And what are you looking at on that specifically?
So in this case, I've actually listed down the different categories of scanners from the benchmark. So I've not really, uh, done a sort of deep
Okay.
analysis of each of them. But I do want to mention that Scorecard also already checks if there's a license file or not. Right? This is about, I think this is about checking the dependencies and what are the licenses of the dependencies, and if one of those licenses is restrictive than the license that the something around that sorts.
Yeah, but again, I want to speak from. I don't know whether it should be scorecards. I think there are specific tools for figuring out whether those licensing for all those dependencies. Oh, Azim, you want to say something? Go ahead.
No, sorry. I mean, please finish your thought.
Yeah, right. At least, and like I think there are special tools for identifying that. I don't. Is it because we want to comply with the CIS supply chain security benchmark? If that's the only reason, I don't know what value prop we're going to be. That's another piece of code that we have to maintain. It's complex enough in my 2 cents. I'll let Azim say what he wants to say.
Yeah, I just want to point out one thing, right? So I think Scorecard is in a somewhat of a unique situation where we don't actually run, like, let's say, static analysis, or we actually don't do secret scanning, but rather we point people to tools which actually do stuff, right? So that puts us in a bit of a tricky spot, because sometimes people can start using Scorecard as like a marketing platform and say, hey, here's my tool, so why don't you recommend this when you're recommending, let's say, LGTM or SonarQube, right? I think we need to figure out what's the right line to be drawing here in terms of like what licenses do we recommend and stuff like that. I genuinely think it is somewhat of a involved discussion, but yeah, I do want to just caution that there is one extreme where, like, if you start recommending every tool, you might just end up recommending all sorts of, like, people might just come to you and say, hey, here's my new tool, why aren't you recommending this? So I think I just want to point that out.
Yeah, I'm confused. I don't remember Scorecards recommending specific tools. I mean, it looks for specific tools, but I don't remember it saying thou shalt use this tool and no others.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, in a way, the fact that we are looking for specific tools makes it that Scorecard is,
Yeah, I think that's a misunderstanding of Scorecards. What I would say is Scorecards is incomplete. It's got bugs. One of the bugs is it doesn't handle all tools. Okay, or you don't have to call it a bug, call it incomplete. But it currently doesn't detect some tools in some situations. Excellent. Please help us fix that. It doesn't handle GitLab. That's that's true. Let's if somebody wants to help add support for GitLab and some of these other things, that's wonderful. But I would not want anybody to walk away and saying, Scorecards only endorses specific tools and requires, I mean, if a tool doesn't do a job, that's fine. But other than that, I think they should be in scope, but somebody's got to show up being willing to put in the effort to add the detector.
Right. So I think here's the question, right? So let's say the SAS check is a pretty good example. If someone's not using SAS, I think if you were a developer and said, hey, I want to pass this check, the first thing you would do is, what all can I do, or what steps can I actually take to pass SAS, which kind of implies the tools that Scorecard is detecting is the tools that Scorecard in a way
No, I
recommends.
think that's totally wrong. I think that's exactly wrong, because Scorecards doesn't cover so many things. Are we really saying that you have to use GitHub, that it's not allowed to use GitLab or any other tools? Are we
I think
really
GitHub
saying you
and
can't use
GitLab
other
are,
SaaS tools? Huh? I don't think that's I think that's an unwise thing to claim. In fact, after a certain point, the what is it? It's the group that involves count was it Basically, there'll probably be some legal claims if we claim thou shalt use X, Y, because that's what we happen to implement today. I don't think that that's the right message. I really don't. I think it's much better to say we're looking for tools. We missed that one. Let's add it if it's relevant. Obviously, if it doesn't do the job, that's a different problem. But if it's relevant, then ideally it should detect it, and that's something else to improve.
So Varun, do you have anything else to discuss on this specifically? I want to just make sure.
Yeah, maybe I can, separate out each of these categories and maybe list them down,
Yes.
and I don't know, do some sort of further discussion.
Yep.
Yeah.
The OpenSSF tools working group actually has a list of tool types. If you want, I can hunt that down and add that to somewhere here to link to it. Would that be of use?
Yeah, that'll be great, David. Thanks.
That'll be good.
I mean, of course, there's no physical law that says that these are the only tools that could possibly exist. I hope you appreciate, it's, let's see here, guide to developing more secure software. Yeah, so if you looked at the guide on how to develop secure software, it links to a guide to security tools, and it has a list of some common ones. Please don't take this as the official list of all the tools that could possibly exist. I actually wrote a paper a number of years ago trying to identify categories of tools, and I think I identified something like 54. Not tools, types of tools.
Okay. Types of tools. Okay.
Types of tools. And for each one, we listed examples. So I know it was over 50. So that doesn't mean that I don't think anyone should expect that you detect 54 different types of tools, never mind the hundreds of tools that actually exist right now. On the other hand, if Scorecards does this detection, it means you're doing something valuable. You're doing something different than everybody else. That's a good thing. If you're doing the same thing everybody else, then why are you doing it? So I acknowledge the challenge, but I think it's a good thing to take on the challenge.
Sorry, we got next 4 minutes. I want to make sure if there's any other pressing issue that we want to discuss about. Okay, great. If there's nothing else.
Sorry, Naveen, I have 12061. Before my holidays, I was working. That PR is closed, and you had commented, given a suggestion. I think I had some issue on that PR 12061. I need your help in that.
What can I help, Saurabh?
So what I need to do in that, because that is closed. It was not much,
Yeah,
and that was an issue.
Yeah, the reason why it closes is because if the PR does not have any changes or not merged in, that's only reason. If I'm not wrong, there was
license issue, something.
Something, and it wasn't passing. Again, my memory is not fresh enough. It wasn't passing all the checks, and I pinged once for that. If I'm not wrong, Saurabh.
Yes.
And because it wasn't, the bot automatically closes that if there's no response, if there's no movement on the PR. You should be able to reopen the PR, Saurabh. That should not be a problem.
All right, thank you very much. I'll reopen this so that I can work on it.
Perfect. Cool.
And another question, I just a thought I added in our list. So for the bad score, currently can we have any scope of opening a GitHub issue so that the who is having this repo can some developer or who is there can take a look what having the less score, bad score to work on to make the fix in the what they're using.
Sorry, I don't understand that question. What do you mean by bad score, Saurabh? Just trying to understand what it is specifically.
Let's say for example, I take the branch protection and against that scorecard gets a less score and the user has to correct those permission against the branch protection, so we up to the mark. So for that issue, is there any we can create an issue against that so that somebody can look into that issue and correct, and then again a scorecard runs and then it passes the checks for it gives a good score for that.
So are you trying to say that scorecard should create an issue?
Yeah.
Oh. I think that is at least right now that is not in scope.
Okay.
To go create issues in people don't want to be spammed. My 2 cents, sort of nobody wants to be spammed. Random bots spamming them saying, "Hey, yours is not right," and that's why that has to need to have a deeper discussion.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thanks. Thank you.
We are close to the hour. I'll have to pick for the next who would want to volunteer to be the facilitator. It's nothing but sharing a screen. Need not be one of the maintainers. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure when is what the next date is. It is 20th. Does anybody want to volunteer?
This is Caroline. I can take it.
Perfect.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry, were you about to?
Perfect.
No, go ahead. Because I was checking my calendar if I'm there. It is
Okay.
I don't have major. And yeah,
Ellen.
we can take it.
Great. I'm going to add you to the next one. It's pretty simple. You have access to this, and you should be able to start the meeting, and like anybody can join, be able to start doing this. Great. If nothing else, see you all in the next 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great, thanks.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.